So after any crisis, and specifically the one that was brought about by the pandemic, the main characteristic that you can identify in human behavior is that of risk averseness. So, during the pandemic, we've seen a lot of investors pull back capital and sitting and waiting to see, what the outcome is going to be. So now in the aftermath of the pandemic, and when we're seeing economic growth return, we're seeing a lot of that capital return to the market as business confidence increases, and hence deal activity is showing a commensurate increase. Specifically the pandemic and the economic crisis that it brought about, if we look at it and analyze it, it was quite different compared to that was the economic dynamics that were seen out of the 08-09 financial crisis. In this instance, there was a total shutdown of economic activity, but demand still existed in the market. So in the aftermath of the crisis, when economic activity starts to abound, the prime focus is going to be on economic growth and how quickly individuals and companies are going to be able to drive top-line revenue growth in their companies. Second to that is looking at the management capabilities and the ability of management to look through the crisis, display resilience, adaptability, and most importantly a focus on strategic opportunities. So were the management able to identify certain strategic opportunities whilst dealing with the turmoil that the crisis brought? And thirdly, were they able to prudently manage cash flows and manage repayment schedules so that when economic growth does return, they're able to take advantage of that and direct funds where they need to be? In analyzing your revenue model, it's key to look to break it down into all the different components, looking at your customer base, looking at your different revenue streams, looking at your different channels, looking at your different projects if that's applicable. So really look to analyze each individual business dependent specifically on their type of revenue model. And then the key point to look at there is to understand the strength of their customer base. So the pandemic affected all businesses across all different industries and value chains. So really want to focus in on the resilience and sustainability of their customer base. Do we believe that their customer base is going to show significant growth in the future? And what proportion of their economic growth is dependent on new business development versus growth from the existing customer base? In any crisis, specifically the one brought about by the pandemic, the key point to zero in on is the ability of the businesses to manage its cash flow. Specifically, are they able to meet their short-term payment obligations, and specifically those payment obligations to their employee and staff and to their creditors? What this tells us is whether or not the business will be able to demonstrate business continuity, and the position that it would be in once economic activity returns, and whether or not they'll be able to drive economic growth. So I think especially in light of this economic crisis that the pandemic brought about, there needs to be a strong focus on forward-looking due diligence. So the questions you really need to ask yourself are, is there a sustainable market for this business going forward, and will the business be able to drive top-line revenue growth, and will this top-line revenue growth translate into economic profit? Were the efforts they made during the crisis to cut costs and ensure business continuity sustainable, and are they able to grow off the base that they currently have in the business? And thirdly, does management have the required skills and capabilities to support and drive growth off the new base that the business now finds itself in?